King Charles is now under threat from the Taliban as fighters from that country have now been moved in to the town of Windsor, incredibly close to his house, and security has had to be improved in Windsor Castle as a result of it. By goodness me, the establishment are now having to suffer the consequences of their own actions in uncontrolled immigration. Hello, everyone. This is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, support the Patriot Fund. The link is below. Sun is in my eyes, but that doesn't bother me because it's a lovely day out here in Windsor. But I will say that there is a significant threat now to this town that has been created by the Afghan resettlement scheme and indeed by the actions of the establishment. King Charles III, as you know, lives at Windsor Castle. There is a town nearby called Datchet. Within it is a hotel called the Manor Hotel, which is now the home for many Afghans. We don't know who these people are, and the government has refused to tell us. But what we now do know for a fact is that Hezbollah, that Hamas, that the Islamic State, that Boko Haram, and indeed the Taliban have infiltrated those people that have come to the UK as refugees. And so, of course, now you have a situation whereby the king lives literally next door to some foreign terrorists who potentially are going to attack him. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Manor Hotel to see what you think of it. Okay, so first of all, the Manor Hotel was just a local hotel that had lots of events on, including weddings, including Tory dinners, all this sort of thing. Good bunch of lads actually own the place and still do. They're actually quite nice blokes. But here is the kicker. Like many small hotels, they were bankrupted by COVID and had to take very, very drastic action. The bloke who owns it said to me that he had a choice. Either his family go out on the streets or he accepted the only way out of saving his family from financial ruin, and that was to take on the migrants' hotel business. Okay, now we all know that Britannia Hotel is slightly different. There are people making money, but some of these small hoteliers have had to take migrants instead of going bust. Now, they are not told who those migrants are. They're not even allowed in to their own hotel. The Home Office bring in staff and give these migrants 3 meals a day. Plus, of course, they all turn up the heating and leave the window open. I don't know what it is about these people, why instead of oh, how do I say this properly? Instead of giving themselves a fulsome clean, they instead heat the room and open the windows. It's a slightly odd cultural difference, perhaps, between Britain and the United States of America. And of course, what he then gets, this is the owner of the Manor Hotel, is the rack rate for every room. Because just remember, if you're a hotel with, say, 20 rooms, and you normally put on your rack rate £100 a night, then that's £2,000 a night. Yes? That's not the way it really works, of course, is because you might get 2 rooms at £100, then 3 rooms at £50, 4 rooms at £80, and some rooms completely empty. And so, of course, whereas you might have £2,000 normally, it might be on an average night you only actually get 800 quid. I'm of course making up these figures. So if you take migrants, you make an incredibly large amount of money. But what have we done now with the UK border? Because I look at Windsor Castle with its security rings. It has what I call Frogmore Village, which is not the real name of the place, where Harry and Meghan and the Duke of York and Prince William live. That is obviously behind one security cordon. Then there is a second one for the castle itself. Similarly, the Palace of Westminster has a security ring around it, which is pretty tight. Then there's more tight rings as you go further into the Prime Minister's office, which has a big steel blast-proof door. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that, but you probably assumed it did anyway. But what we used to do in this country was we used to have the border at Dover. Now, in reality, you have the border in Windsor and the border in Westminster. That is to say that the people that shouldn't be in the United Kingdom, that the United Kingdom should be protected from, are now allowed in the United Kingdom, but we just restrict them from going into certain key government buildings. So the people that foisted upon you this uncontrolled immigration are still protected from what is taking place for the rest of the country. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how to commit a terrorist atrocity, but if it were me, I'll tell you what I would do. I would sit in Tehran, or I would sit in Nigeria, or I would sit in Afghanistan, and I would say, infiltrate these small boats, and then do not communicate with each other and get 500 of you simultaneously on one day at one town to start a lone wolf attack and get 500 done simultaneously. That is what I'm sure will happen in the United Kingdom. And of course, King Charles will be protected from that, but you and I will not receive that similar protection. What sort of a country is it that says that we should do this to our own citizens? It's a country that genuinely hates itself and believes in self abortion. And I believe there is a simple reason for all of this. The elites at the top of this country have never loved this country. They've always believed that English people, British people, are brutish and stupid. And of course, they've always wanted to be much more like the French. As I've always said, Mrs. Bucket always called herself Mrs. Bouquet. If you see anything written in French, it's considered more posh than in English. I believe that goes back to the Norman invasion of 1066. In a field, it's called a pig. On a plate, it's called pork. In a field, it's called a cow. On a plate, it's called beef. That's because the Anglo-Saxons, you and I, were the farmers, whereas the French were the people that consumed the farm products. And that's why menus and so on and so forth are written in French. I believe that King Charles will be completely safe from this Taliban threat, but you and I won't be so safe. And so what questions will be asked of the king himself when there is a major terror attack in Windsor by these people that we know now to be terrorists? He'll just shrug his shoulders and say, it's a price we pay for uncontrolled immigration and our multicultural society, or however he does it. And so will our leaders. Because, of course, what did Poland say about terrorism? They said that the reason they had so little terrorism, they've had no terrorist attacks at all, is because they have not allowed uncontrolled immigration to take over their country. We have in the United Kingdom, and that is the problem that it's given us. King Charles, congratulations on the security around your building. Datchet is incredibly close. It just borders onto the Windsor Castle estate. Most of the central Windsor is around the low, what's called the Castle Lower Ward, and then there's an upper ward where the king actually lives. I can guarantee you he'll be completely safe from assassination, but you and I will not be so safe. And then when these attacks happen, we will start to ask ourselves an important question, won't we, as a country? How can we stop people on social media blaming uncontrolled immigration for these attacks? Yes, that will be the question that will be asked. It won't be, how has uncontrolled immigration made your family unsafe? Why are we allowing people to do what we're allowing them to do? Why is it a situation that I made a video yesterday about a Pakistani woman being moved into a home that was supposed to be for homeless people? I'm looking at it right now. She's rented it out on Airbnb to a group of holidaymakers who I think you can hear in the background. And so she came to this country from Pakistan a month ago, and already the property is on Airbnb being rented out to what seemed like a very lovely family who are not involved in that fraud at all. So there is what is happening to this country. Whilst you and I struggle to copper up, whilst you and I struggle to heat our homes and clothe our families, we have people right across this country who are gaining the homes and properties and benefits which were intended for people like you. And many of the people coming to the country are very lovely, even though they've got their hands in the till. But then there is the threat from terrorism, but it is a threat to you and it's a threat to me, and it's not a threat to His Majesty the King. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe to the Patriot Fund. We're supporting all sorts of things. We support the Women's Safety Initiative. We give small grants and indeed pay for stupid things like transport and food for people out campaigning for a patriotic world and trying to protect our country. Until next time, goodbye.